At the first hour mark of the 2017 Pixar movie Coco, Ernesto de la Cruz is revealed to have poisoned his former best friend Hector and then gotten famous by taking credit for Hector's songs. You thought I was kidding about that spoiler warning at the start of the video. Nope, we're jumping right into it. Miguel used to think that Ernesto was his long-lost relative, but he learned that it was actually Hector, and Ernesto is a bad guy who gained fame through murder and stealing. Unfortunately, no one else was around to hear Hector's accusation or to come to that conclusion. Ernesto has a picture of Hector that Miguel has to bring back to the world of the living, so with the help of his family, they all go after Ernesto. But Ernesto doesn't want Miguel to have that picture because if Miguel reveals Ernesto's evil backstory, it could ruin his reputation. He's willing to do anything to protect his image, even murdering a child. This whole showdown takes place at the Sunrise Spectacular, the biggest show in the afterlife, where an entire stadium is packed to the brim with hundreds of thousands of fans waiting to see Ernesto perform. And Ernesto is backstage, holding Miguel over a cliff, and Miguel tells him off and rightfully accuses him of murdering Hector and then stealing his songs, and Ernesto says he's going to kill Miguel and tosses him off that cliff. But what Ernesto doesn't know is that, big gasp, this whole scene has just been televised to his entire audience. Whoa. And when Ernesto comes back on stage, instead of being welcomed with passionate cheers, he is booed and tomatoed and dragged away by an afterlife spirit. This villain confession does not work. When the movie came out, many people criticized this scene. They said it was cheap and overdone and they should have found a more original way of ruining Ernesto's reputation. And I agreed. That whole "the bad guy had been secretly filmed the entire time" deal never really does it for me, probably because I have seen it done 1,000 times before. Or is it? Because then it got me thinking, when had I seen it done before? And the first example that came to mind was a story that everyone agrees is actually great. The wonderful and ever so relevant Turma da Mônica Jovem number 9 from April 2009, featuring the story The Perfect Prince, where Cebolinha secretly films the mysterious new cute boy in school as he reveals that every nice thing he had done so far had all been part of his plan to gain Mônica's trust and later humiliate her by rejecting her, causing the audience to flip on him. Oh, and Monsters Inc. But I think that one's too niche for people to remember, and that intrigued me. Why does the twist of the villain being secretly filmed as he reveals his plan work, but only sometimes? Why do I praise it being done in one Pixar film, but not in another? Stick with me, and we might as well find out. I wanna talk about engineered confessions. Nerds online may already be familiar with the website TV Tropes, but for those of you who have a social life, TV Tropes is an online directory of so-called tropes in fiction. A trope is, basically, a thing that happens a lot. You know, the makeover montage, usually involving turning someone more conventionally attractive by taking off their glasses. Enemies to lovers, where two members of a couple start off despising each other, but by the end they're madly in love. The liar reveal, when a character who has been keeping up a lie for most of the plot has a moment where the farce falls apart. The fake out death, when you think a character has died, but they were really just knocked unconscious. A popular knee-jerk reaction would be to say, hey, tropes are bad, because they have been done to death. But in reality, having tropes is an inevitability of constructing a narrative. Saying you want a story without tropes is like saying you want a cake without ingredients. What people usually mean when they say they hate tropes is that they hate cliches. The terms have a lot of overlap, but for our purposes, let's say a cliché is a trope that has been done so many times that people start growing tired of it. Trope is a neutral word, while cliché usually has negative connotations. TV Tropes actually has a name for that phenomenon I was talking about. Engineered public confession. The villain thinks he is alone with the hero, and takes the opportunity to go on and on about how they're evil and terrible and have secretly murdered 1,000 teddy bears and poisoned the water supply. And the hero might say something like, "You won't get away with this," and the villain's like, "Ha ha ha, no one will ever believe you." But then, oh crap! They had been secretly being filmed the entire time, and the villain's confession was heard by everybody in the audience. It can be instantaneous, or it can be more like the heroes got a recording and are sending it to the police later. The Riveras do it with Ernesto. Mike and Sully do it to Waternoose. Monsters Inc. does it well, because it's an actual twist. Waternoose thinks he's talking only to Sully and that they're both in Boo's room, but they're actually inside the child scare simulator, and the whole conversation is not only being recorded for posterity, but it's also being actively watched by the CDA, who promptly arrest Waternoose after his outburst. We don't know any of this. We are just as clueless as Waternoose. We're taking the information presented to us at face value, because the movie has given us no reason to doubt its validity. In Coco, there is no twist. It's a twist to Ernesto, who doesn't know he's being filmed, but not to us, because as soon as Ernesto starts being evil, this skeleton sneakily picks up the camera, and then gives a nod to this other skeleton, who presses a button on a switchboard, and suddenly the confession is being televised. There is no reveal regarding the transmission, because it was never hidden. We know it's happening, and we know exactly how it's about to play out. The villain will reveal his plan, and the audience is going to be mad, and the villain will be rejected, and then he will get what he deserves. I must point out that there is nothing inherently wrong with choosing one style of reveal over another. Some people might prefer the twist, while others want to know everything that is going on. But I am of the opinion that concealing some information in order to have a twist strengthens the eventual reveal, because it doesn't give you time to consider whether or not you're experiencing a cliché. If you show the audience that an engineered public confession is about to happen, we know exactly what is going to take place from that point onwards. Keeping it a surprise leaves you standing on the edge of your seat, hoping that a possible engineered public confession is about to happen, but having no way of proving that. I also want to talk about the anatomy of a good twist. It might sound counterintuitive, but a good twist has to be plausible. If it's something completely unpredictable that the movie never hinted could happen, it feels like a betrayal of trust. On the other hand, you also can't make it too obvious, otherwise it's not a twist at all. Monsters Inc. is good at this. The twist uses the scare simulator, which is actually the very first thing you see in the movie, and right off the bat, we understand a couple of things about it. It is a replica of a child's bedroom, and everything you do in there once the sim is running is automatically recorded. The simulator is shown to us again later in the movie, specifically reinforcing the idea that actions are being recorded. When Waternoose confronts Sully in the child's bedroom, we are led to believe that it is Boo's, and this is in part because the rooms are very similar, which is by design. They both have striped wallpaper, drawings on the walls, and single beds in the same position. However, there are also subtle differences. The drawings are scattered similarly, but they are different drawings. Boo has this orange cat-looking doodle next to her door, and no circus poster. And very keen-eyed viewers might even remember the poster from the simulation scenes earlier in the movie. Realistically speaking, you're probably not going to catch that on a first viewing, but if you pay attention, it's there for those with eyes to see it, which in turn makes rewatches even more rewarding. It is a perfect balance of how much information it chooses to conceal and how much it lets you see. Coco has none of that. Ernesto makes his confession in a location we had never seen before. The cameras that transmit it had been shown to us previously, But when I say that, I mean literally 4 minutes before they are used in the reveal. It is good to establish things beforehand, but that's too close. When the family is backstage, you didn't have time to forget the cameras existed. You still remember them clearly, so you're thinking, somebody ought to use those cameras. And then they do. Hooray! So, we understand that a satisfying engineered public confession needs to keep a good balance of revealed and concealed information, and the audience shouldn't know that it's happening until after the villain confesses. These are all objective details that you can use to understand why you like a certain scene, or even incorporate these tips into your own narratives. But now I am going to tell you the most important thing of all. I don't like Coco very much. Before you take out the pitchforks, let me just say, it's a beautiful movie. It's aesthetically stunning. I would go as far as to claim it is one of the prettiest and most visually detailed movies ever made. It can be heartwarming, funny, charming, and it can make you cry like a little baby. It is also a story about a culture that is grossly underrepresented in mainstream international media. And if anyone who identifies with the characters depicted felt joy in seeing themselves and their customs being portrayed with such love and vibrancy, I think this is wonderful, and goes to show we need more stories like it. So, if you love Coco, I am incredibly happy for you. But it's not my thing. I kinda have an issue with the whole world building of it. Like, Pixar wanted to imagine this beautiful Mexican afterlife, and the best they could come up with was an immigration border? Seriously? I understand we need conflict to have a story, and that Hector needed a reason to be unable to cross into the world of the living to see Coco, but did the reason really have to be an immigration border? And what about the border workers, and when do they get to cross over? Why are they working during this major holiday? Is it the Dia de los Muertos equivalent of working retail on Thanksgiving? And look at these skeletons! They have no one who puts up their picture in the world of the living, so in the afterlife, they're poor and reside in the slums. Oh, come on! We gotta have social inequality in the afterlife too? It's not like they gotta eat to live, but they can't even have the pleasure of having good food. Can't we work out some sort of redistribution system for the uber-remembered? Taxation of the ofrenda billionaires? And then it turns out that when there's no one left in the world of the living who remembers you, you die. You're already dead, but you die again. They call it the final death. Are you kidding me? I'm losing my spinal cord over this. Pixar wanted to create a fantabulous and imaginative version of what happens after you cross to the other side, and what they invented is exactly like real life. There's poverty, class disparity, immigration borders, prejudice against the less fortunate, and then you die. Girl, if I knew this is what awaited me after death, I would've just kept on living. There's a brilliant video essay by Eliquorice that goes into a lot more detail about why this world building is unfortunate, and I cannot recommend it enough if you want to explore this topic further. I brought it up here not as an in-depth discussion, but more of a way of stating my general grievances with the film. Once again, Monsters, Inc. takes the win as the better movie, because I happen to like its world building more. The Monster Society is also a little messed up, but we're talking about a literal corporation here, so of course they're going to be evil. And in the end, the heroes find a way to make it less evil. Unlike in Coco, where everyone agrees everything is perfectly fine and nothing systemic should change. My point is, people are a lot more willing to overlook the flaws of a piece of work if they like the work in question. I don't vibe with Coco, so when it presents me with a subpar engineered public confession, I happily join the critics and say the scene was bad. On the other hand, I do vibe with Monsters, Inc., so even though it presents us with a cliché, my eyes are already tuned to how they did it right, and not how flawed it may be. But Monsters Inc. is a really unfair competitor because I've been a fan of it since it came out. And also, since I was roughly 5 years old when that happened, I didn't understand anything that was going on. None of it. I was just looking at the funny monsters. Corporations? Secret schemes? Exploitation of children? What are you talking about? I just learned how to spell my name. So, by the time I grew older and actually understood the plot, I already knew about the twist. It was still just as satisfying, but I knew it was coming. When Coco came out, I had the further developed brain of a 20-year-old, so I understood what was going on. I just happened not to care for it. Therefore, in the interest of a fair comparison, I can't pit Coco against a beloved movie from our childhood that is permanently stained with the tint of our rose-colored glasses. Yes, I like Monsters Inc. better than Coco, but the list of newer movies who stood a chance is rather limited. Instead, let's compare the engineered public confession in Coco to the same trope in a recent piece of work that isn't contaminated by nostalgia. The season 4 finale of Apple TV's star-studded cast, The Morning Show. Yes, this is just an excuse to talk about The Morning Show, let me be happy for once. Now, I can't make you watch all 4 seasons of TMS, even though I wish I could because it's really good. And I can't fill you in on everything that has happened up to the point of the confession, but I will give you the basic necessary context. This lady is named Bradley, and she is our hero journalist. Bradley is friends with Alex, also a journalist, and Alex works for Celine, the CEO. Celine is the villain, and Bradley was going to expose Celine as the villain, so Celine secretly sent Bradley to jail. Alex found out about the whole thing and is holding a press conference where she intends to expose Celine. Celine is terrified because she doesn't want to be exposed, so she is telling her kinda boyfriend Corey to go stop Alex's press conference. Corey and Celine go way back, but Corey also has a history with Bradley, because Corey had loved her for a while, but then she broke his heart. And Celine had just helped Corey deal with the loss of his mom, so it's easy to see why Corey would side with Celine here. So Corey is on the phone with Celine, and Celine is telling him all about how he has to stop Alex right now, and how no one can ever expose her for the villain that she is, and she will keep Bradley in prison for 1,000 years if it'll help her get away with her crimes. But then, Celine hears something. Her own voice, echoing back at her. Because Corey had put her on speaker at Alex's press conference, meaning Celine had just confessed to all her evil deeds on live TV. This is a cliche. It's as cliche as cliches come. It's a cheap, trite, overdone, lazy way of exposing your villains. I know. But I was watching the show with my mom, and when that scene came on, dear viewer, I was screaming. I was hooting and hollering and clapping and cheering. I was losing my composure. I was phoning the president. I was naming my firstborn child after that scene. It was delicious. It was delightful. It was everything I could have asked for. And it was a cliche. I love The Morning Show, but I can also see when it's bad. Yeah, I'm talking about You Season 2. Loving something also means being aware of its flaws. But when the good outweighs the bad can't make you stop loving something. The engineered public confession in The Morning Show is satisfying because it is so well executed. It has all of those good things that I was talking about. A previously established way for the confession to be recorded and transmitted, just enough hints that the transmission would happen so that a keen-eyed viewer could catch it, but still plenty of indications that the villain would indeed get away with their plan, only for the reveal to happen and catch us all by surprise. This is a twist, esteemed guests. I expect nothing less. One thing that I love about TMS is how clever and nuanced it is, and for a show that is known for such qualities, you would think that using a trope this overdone would ruin the magic. but the reveal is so well crafted it leaves you thrilled instead of rolling your eyes. A well-done cliché is like when your mom cooks you your favorite dish. You've had it 100 times before, but it's so well made that you could eat it 1,000 times more. You might get sick of it if you eat it every day, but having it every once in a while just makes you glad you get to experience it again. And much like a favorite dish, there's no way I could pick what clichés you're into and which ones ruin the mood for you. There are tropes in fiction I cannot stand, and they ruin the experience for me anytime. If you're the type of person who despises the engineered public confession, no matter how much I break it down or point it when it's being done well, I can't make you love the good ones too. Hey, what do you mean? Wow. All of this to say that art is subjective. I don't like Coco, but plenty of people do, and that's fine. But I think the confession scene in Coco is disappointing, and because I'm not in love with the rest of the movie, it bothers me way more than it would for the average viewer. Exploring why a scene doesn't work, either for you or for the general audience, is an essential tool to understanding how stories function. If you are to take any lessons from this, I would encourage you to take a more critical look at clichés, both the ones you enjoy and those you don't, and see what makes them tick. What are filmmakers getting right, and where are they missing the mark? Most importantly, why is that so? This exercise helped me understand why the reveal in Coco didn't work, and why I was so excited over the morning show. Taking a deeper look at the stories that move us can teach us a lot about how to make good stories of our own. I hope this was informative to you, and I wish you the best in exploring other stories too. Thank you for watching. Well, hello there. It was very nice of you to watch this video. Special thanks to my beautiful patrons for making videos like these possible. You guys are the tropes I never get tired of seeing. If you have enjoyed the video, you can also help me out by clicking the like button, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the notification bell too. You can also follow me on a bunch of different places, such as Blue Sky, the website formerly known as Twitter, and my second channel. The link to all of those things will be in the description. Share this video with your friends if you're feeling extra generous. Feel free to leave a comment down below, especially if it is about how much you love any of the movies I mentioned here. Actually, wildcard time, tell me in the comments if you've ever read Turma da Mônica Jovem. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!
I think I maybe killed my mom.